Good morning. Welcome everybody back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. Finally back in familiar settings, finally back home from my trip. It is Wednesday, December 20th. We are, 5 days away from Christmas, which means, call it. We got a big Monday slate of NBA, obviously, NFL. We're going to have all of those, getting into the weekend and into the holiday weekend. But we're going to focus on today. Ari, quickly, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We had a couple of really fun NBA games last night on TNT with Jaw's return and the Warriors Celtics. Those are fun to watch. But yeah, doing good. Looking forward to another day of betting.
Yeah, you mentioned it. One of the, fun best days for me as well. Obviously, I finally hit a Prize Picks entry. It took me a while. I finally hit one with the NBA guys. I know, but now we're just gonna get into the recap we had yesterday. Obviously, I do want to preface. I did have the UTSA Marshall game going over, but then literally, as that day was going on, the line was going down, and I was getting a little concerned. But then, it came out that Frank Harris, the quarterback for UTSA, was not going to be playing, dealing with a multitude of injuries. So when that line was moving down, and as soon as I saw the total go down, I just said I'm going to avoid it. And I gave out this lean as well, this other play, Providence plus 4.5. That was one of my other college basketball plays that I did like as well, just not as much as Memphis minus 2.5. But I mean, what can I say? I had a 3-0 day technically. First, Memphis minus 2.5, minus 30, minus whatever. Virginia's offense didn't show up. This is what I was talking about. Virginia's offense is very, very shaky, and then when they're at home, their defense can only carry you so much, right? We talk about there's road atmospheres as well, and Memphis is a very, very good team. David Jones, one of the best forwards in basketball right now, he's playing electric. He had a 20. I think he had 22. When they got Javon Quinterly, I think that really completed their team, having a lethal three-point shooter for Memphis. I like this team. They're going to be a wagon all year, so that was a nice win. Providence on plus 4.5. They didn't even need it because they won by double digits. And like I said, home court. This was a system that I talked about. When that line's about 5 or under with a ranked opponent going to a non-ranked opponent, you always take the dog on the points. This has been a system that's been working for me all season. Another win for me, Providence plus 4.5. They looked like the better team. They shot better. Like I said, Marquette, they're a great offensive team, but when their offense is not there, it's going to be really hard for them to get back in that game. I do want to talk about that UTSA game because that was something. I mean, I was on the plane the whole ride, but obviously going into that, there was no question of what was going to happen. Then obviously that late touchdown, UTSA won 35-17. So the over 51.5 just over the hook, that did cash as well. And then also, I was going to do UTSA minus 11, but a certain someone had 30 units on it, and I was and then I saw that line move, and yeah, I didn't like that as well. But they obviously did win by 18. Like I said, Maryland. Marshall has one of the worst offensive lines. UTSA, very, very good pass rush. They were pretty much getting to the quarterback all game. If you did see that, I saw some of the highlights. It was just, UTSA kind of getting to the quarterback, plenty of turnovers, especially that 57-yard interception off of the fumble. Just nothing going Marshall's way. But, I will gladly take a 3-0 day, especially off of a play that I recommended to stay away from, and then adding another play in that was easily cash. I think that's a great day for me. Ari, I'll let you get into your recap now after me just hyping myself up too much. How'd you do yesterday?
Yeah, I had one win and one push. The Suns first half again, where a first half play comes into play where the Suns covered the first half and lost outright. They got crushed in the second half by Portland. I think that they got outscored by like 18 in the third quarter, and then they lost by I think 5 points. So that was a good read with the Suns, and the Celtics was a tough one. They were up by 6 with like 20 seconds left in the first half, and Kuminga hit the 3 with like 10 seconds left to go down by 3. So, and then they missed the last shot of the half, so that pushed. But then the Warriors won in overtime. So another one where the first half play either hit or pushed, and then full. If you took them full game, it wouldn't have hit. So yeah, obviously you're not going to complain about a 1-win, 1-push day. Could have been 2-0 if there's one more missed shot by the Warriors or one more make by the Celtics, obviously. But yeah, that was quite comeback by Portland over the Suns. Like I talked about the Suns struggling as of late. They barely beat the Wizards the game before, and they lost the two before, so they've lost 3 of 4 now. And their one win was squeaking by over the Wizards at home, where they're down by like 12 early. So definitely a tough stretch for the Suns here.
Yeah, you mentioned that Suns first half. I mean, we are very lucky. We obviously took the Suns first half because you mentioned they lost the game outright in that second half. It just kind of looked like throughout that first half, Portland really couldn't really get a shot up. They really had struggle. I was obviously keeping track of that game for personal reasons for Prize Picks, but just from what I was seeing, really hard. Day for shooting for the Portland Trailblazers at home. But, second half, they just turned it up. So, that was a good read on the first half. And you mentioned the Suns team has been – they barely beat the Wizards. So, now they just lost to the Blazers outright in that second half. And then the Celtics first half, you'll take a push. Obviously, you would like maybe if it was at 2.5, maybe that was a win for you on the hook. But, -3, we did expect the Celtics kind of control the first half. And then they got out to a little bit of a lead in that third quarter. But then the Warriors slowly kept coming back in that fourth quarter, pushing overtime, and then the Warriors eventually getting that win in overtime with the Steph Curry dagger to steal it. Like I said, you can't really complain too much about a 1-0 one day, but that's, again, no losses for us yesterday, so that is what we are very happy about, and we're going to hope to continue that today with our best bets. Here are mine. I only got 2 plays for you today, just strictly in college basketball. First, we're going to – and both games, I believe, are in Madison Square Garden, so we don't have to worry about home court or nothing because this is – obviously neutral court. First, I'm going to go with one of the big – there are so many great games today for college basketball. One of my favorites, I'm taking Baylor Duke to go under 154.5. This is a -130 on DraftKings right now. This line is going down, and it should be. Baylor, obviously, one of the better offensive teams in the nation, but, Duke's a very good defensive team, and Duke needs this win, obviously. They've dropped a couple games, and, records don't really evaluate a team that well, and Duke – yes, they're 7-3, but when you look at who they lost to, they barely lost to that Georgia Tech game. I think that was a fluke for them. Obviously, the Arkansas game, that was just a bad spot for them. But I like them back in a bounce back spot. They've had plenty of rest. They haven't played a game for 8 days, and now they got to play, one of the better offensive teams in Baylor. We talk about Baylor. They're second in three-pointer percentage. They're 7th in field goal percentage. They're 8th in points per game, but they're playing Duke, who's a very, very defensive team this year. Obviously, led inside with Filipkowski and, just who the guy, obviously him and Roach. It's kind of those two, kind of leading the way for Duke. And, in this spot, obviously we talk about neutral court. And then, this is the first game on that neutral court side. And, these guys, they tend to come out a little slow in terms of shooting, not really getting themselves under their own foot. And, especially against a defensive team like Duke, I expect Baylor. I'm more leaning on Baylor to kind of struggle on the field a lot. I think this is going to be a lot closer, a very defensive game. I think that 154.5 is a little too much. I think Duke may be covered. I think it's going to – I didn't really like a side in this. I think, if I was to lean a side, I'd lean maybe Duke on the points. But at the same time, Baylor, they've always been a wagon in terms of how they finish games. So I would maybe just lean the under, and that's what I'm taking here. I think it's just going to be a very low-scoring game. Expect Baylor to maybe struggle shooting in the first half, maybe continue in that second half. And then for Duke, obviously, they lean so much on Filipkowski and Roach, maybe, they both kind of struggle and, just not the greatest game offensively. Obviously, neutral court, it's the first game and, it's not your home court. So you're not used to these baskets, not used to these rims or whatever. So I'm taking Baylor Duke under 154.5. I think that's going to be a great defensive game. Two great coaches, Scott Drew and John Shire, two great college basketball coaches. I think they're going to, battle it out, and I think that game's going to go under. And then literally the game after it, I'm taking UNC -3. I like this bounce back spot for the Tar Heels after that, heartbreaking loss to Kentucky just a few days ago where, I think it was RJ Davis who passed the ball and went off of I forgot who it was, off his backside and went out of bounds to potentially maybe tie or even send that game into overtime or even win it at that point. But now they're back on a neutral court again, playing Oklahoma. And I think this Oklahoma team is not – yes, they're good, but this is going to be their biggest test of the season. They haven't played, I'd say, anyone as the level as they're playing, this UNC team. They are a very good scoring team, but, they cannot shoot from three. They're only 34% from three. They turn over the ball a lot, and I don't think that's going to be a great recipe for you in this spot. They barely beat Arkansas earlier this season. And don't get me wrong, Arkansas is a great team, but, this is that was a home game for them, and that was a great win for them because it was a home game. But now they're on a neutral court, and they got to play UNC, who is coming off of a really, really tough loss just the other day against Kentucky. I really like UNC in this spot -3. I think 3 is very generous. I think UNC exposes Oklahoma for what they are. I mean, yes, they aren't. I mean, yes, you can say that both teams aren't great defensively, but I mean, Oklahoma has not played any kind of top competition. I'd say the best teams they've played are probably Iowa and then Arkansas. And those aren't top teams that are in the top 25. I don't think they played a single top 25 team yet. And so for them to go play UNC, a team that is coming off a bad loss, I just don't like them in this spot. I like the Tar Heels -3. I think that line potentially could grow up to 3.5. That line opened at 2.5. I just think this is a great game. You mentioned, who you lean on in these type of games. And then obviously it's going to be RJ Davis and Armando Bacot. Those two have kind of been the reason, UNC have kind of had the bounce back season they've had, along with Harrison Ingram and Cormac. Those four are the four guys that, this UNC team can lean on, in these kind of spots. But 13 turnovers a game for Oklahoma. That's just not going to win you this game if you're facing a really good UNC team that does not turn the ball over as much. I would back Oklahoma just because, they're the undefeated team and, all that stuff. But I do like UNC in this spot -3. I think Oklahoma finally takes their first loss of the season, just facing a better team. So those are my 2 picks today, Baylor Duke under, and I'm taking the UNC Tar Heels -3. Ari, what are you cooking up?
Yeah, so the first game I'll be at tonight, Arizona, Alabama. It's considered neutral court, but it's at the Suns Arena, so it's going to be just like when Arizona played Purdue in the Pacers Arena. It was neutral court, but it was mostly Purdue fans. It was like an hour and a half drive from Purdue to the Pacers Arena, and this is basically the same thing, an hour and a half drive from Tucson to the Suns Arena. So it's gonna feel like a home court game for Arizona. I'm taking them just to cover in the first half. They're, I think, -8.5 or 8, something like that, full game. The total opened up at 176.5, which is like crazy high, but they both average over 90 points per game this season. So with that, it makes sense. Alabama's just outside the top 25 in three-point attempts per game. So they're really reliant on the 3-point shot. And, so that's they're really hot and cold, obviously, if they're going to get hot or miss. And I think with the adjustments that Arizona made in the second half, against the 3 against Purdue will help them, kind of carry that into this game against Alabama. This is actually Alabama's 3rd straight top 8 game. They lost 2 close games to, I think it was Purdue and Creighton, their last 2 games. And so now Arizona's number 4. So this is their 3rd straight top 8 matchup, so tough schedule for them as well. I just like Arizona to get off, not home crowd technically, but they should be dominant Arizona fans, obviously. And I don't think there's gonna be many Alabama fans that travel for this one game, obviously. So I'm going Arizona to cover the first half, get off to a fast start, cover the -4 in the first half. And then late night NBA, Kings at home, Celtics back-to-back after a tough loss to the Warriors last night. I've talked about the Kings and them being at home, a number of times on here. Celtics back-to-back, Kings more rest. They've won 3 in a row at home. The Kings in their past 3 games. I think they cover the 2.5 as well, which is obviously better value to cover the spread. But I'm just taking them on my line for the sake of this, just to win at home, light the beam to finish up the night.
Yeah, I like those picks as well. Ari, you mentioned Arizona. I actually was going to take Arizona full game, but you mentioned, that Alabama offense can just cover that spread easily, especially with especially with how much they. You mentioned both of these teams pretty much top 5 in scoring. In addition, so that's why the overall was ridiculously high, but it is ridiculously high for a reason because both of the teams can't shoot. I was watching the Alabama game against Creighton, and I saw Alabama, pretty much keep this game close, whether Creighton was trying to get a lead or not. And Creighton, obviously, one of the better shooting teams in the nation as well. And so kind of going off of that, and obviously Alabama 6-4, they're not having a great season, but you mentioned all the losses they faced. They lost to Creighton on the road, they lost to Purdue, and then obviously they lost to Clemson, and then I believe they lost to Ohio State. So those are 4 tournament teams that they've lost to. And, it's just not an easy non-conference schedule for the Crimson Tide now facing, obviously, Arizona, who I still think is the number one team in the country. Personally, I just think they're a better team. But I would lean their full game spread. But as you mentioned, obviously, first half, I just think Arizona gets out to a good lead, and then maybe Alabama starts to climb back with their 3-point shooting. And that's the thing with Alabama. If they can't hit the three, it's going to be a long night for them. But if they're hitting their shots well, then they're going to make it a really fun game. So I do like Arizona on the first half spread. I was leaning the full game, but I think the first half is just a safer bet at -4. And then going back to your system, fading teams, just off of the back-to-back, if they take the loss the previous day, the Warriors just beat that Celtics team in a very long overtime game. Obviously, Celtics having I think a 13-point lead in that third quarter before, the Warriors to come back. And then obviously now the Kings with more rest, they get to host this Celtics team. And I like the Kings -2.5 as well. But just to be safe, as you said, just take them straight up on the money line. I like that at -135. Those are Ari's two picks tonight. Arizona first half -4 and the Kings money line as well. Here are mine once again. I have UNC -3. I think that's -110 on DraftKings. And then Baylor Duke, I'm just taking the under 154.5. I think it's going to be a very low, not many points scored in that game. I like that under 154, and that's going in the right direction. I think that's -130 on DraftKings. Those are our best bets. Those are Ari's best bets. You can find all of these on our Twitter below, AKP Sports Talk Now. Obviously, Ari will be traveling to this game, Alabama versus Arizona, as he just mentioned. It's an hour-and-a-half drive. So because of that, we will not be having a video tomorrow, but we will be posting our best bets for the Thursday night game, obviously Saints, Ravens, and games throughout the day, whether that we like college basketball. We also have some college football tomorrow, so we will be posting all of our plays tomorrow. So make sure you guys check out our Twitter for all of our plays tomorrow, and then we will be back on Friday to record our special holiday weekend filled with so much college football, so much college basketball, so much NFL, and obviously Christmas Day on Monday. But that's going to do it for us today. That's Ari. I'm Kriya. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you guys on Friday.